On this week's episode, we talk all about cooking.
We talk about our journeys cooking and baking and what that's like with low vision.
So stick around.
Hi, and welcome to Rare with Flair,
The podcast where two best friends with the same rare disease are living our best lives. I'm your host, Casey.
and I'm your host, Cassandra. I thought that you were saying the tagline wrong, and I forgot that we changed it.
I know. Well, guys, we've been on hiatus for a few weeks. We did this last January as well, just going from season 3 to season 4. So welcome to season 4. Oh my gosh. But it's so good to be back. I really miss the pod when we are away.
Oh, I know. And I miss you.
I miss you too. How have you been though? Let the listeners know how the last few weeks while we've been gone have gone for you.
Well, so we did our New Year's episode. We recorded it like mid-December, and then we each had Christmas and New Year's, and we are now back. It's like mid-January now, and girl, I spent Christmas with my parents. It was really nice, low-key. It was very cold. It snowed. It was negative 7 degrees.
Yes.
But then we did a very, like I had said in the New Year's episode, it was a very whiplashy year. We made a very whiplashy move of weather, and we went to Puerto Rico, where it was 80 degrees every day. So
Yes.
that was great. We visited family and ate a lot of food, and celebrated the New Year and Three Kings Day, and now I'm back and I have to clean my house, girl. How are you?
Yes. Well, I'm glad you had a great trip. Glad to have you back. I've been good. Had a very great holiday season, low-key Christmas and New Year. Just been kind of going into the new year. I had to let our listeners know that I recently had an audio description fail. And so,
tell.
Those things, they never stop happening. Well, I texted Cass in the moment. I went to go see Avatar. It's like The Way of Water is the tagline, I think.
So.
The new Avatar movie with my friend, and I'm sitting in during the previews, and it's like, it's already going, and it's the audio description is already like, you can tell it's like pretty far into the film as far as I could tell. And I was like, this cannot be right. So I had to get up, and the man was like, oh, I put you in the wrong theater. He did the wrong theater, you know?
Good
and
Lord.
So they have to give you your correct theater. He did not. And it ended up being fine, but I was just laughing, and I had to tell the listeners, of course.
Oh my gosh.
Course.
That kind of thing, man. I don't know if I've ever had that happen. That's a new one. We got to add that one to our repertoire of audio description fails.
I was going to say, you have had fails, though. Like, to be
I have
clear.
had fails. Yes.
You've had fails.
And y'all should listen to our audio description episode. I thought it was fun, but like
it was.
I've never had that specific fail.
Right. It was very strange, but
how was
you know
the
what?
description otherwise?
Wonderful. I quite literally would not have understood the film without the description. Yeah.
I remember from the first one, oh my gosh, girl, was it like 12, 13 years ago?
I think it was 2008.
Oh, jeez.
Either 8 or 9.
Okay.
I think 8. Yeah, 8 or 9. Yeah, it's been a hot minute. But I remember seeing that in the theater as well without audio description.
Yeah, well, I remember and in Disney World and now Animal Kingdom, they have the whole Pandora section, and so much of it is like really like beautiful, unique visuals, and there's a lot of like silent moments with music and like pretty vistas, and I'm like, wow, okay. Must be interesting.
Yeah, but I'm glad it ended up working. I know only the pod listeners will understand my struggle. Well, those of you who are visually impaired. Some of you listening are not, but a lot of you are. So, there you go.
True.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Girl, it is January.
Yeah,
and
it is.
Do you have any, actually, you know what? Do you have any New Year's resolutions? I feel like we talked about this last January.
We did. Did we not talk about it on the last episode?
I don't know if we did. I think we were talking about just kind of what we hoped for the next.
Okay.
The
We can,
year.
we can real quick go through some resolutions. I did make resolutions. I think they're on my phone, but off the top of my head, I'll share a few. I think some resolutions are a little more personal, maybe, but
Sure.
a few resolutions. I'm not going to get too much into detail about this. I might if I start doing it, but I have a vision board, so. One of the things on
love
my
that.
vision board is volunteer. I want to volunteer some this year, and I will
That's so
share
good.
if I do. I will share that. I also one of my resolutions is to graduate Braille transcribing school that I'm in.
Woo!
I hope I can graduate in this calendar year. Let's see what else is on my vision board. I think one of the like kind of more abstract resolutions I have that I said on the last episode is to kind of just be unapologetically me, to use my
Yes,
cane, to do
girl.
all that. I would like to read a lot more. I've been reading a crap ton, like just in the last week, but I go through phases.
so
Like
good.
I always joke that I'm either reading like 3 books a week or not at all, and there's no in between. but it's kind of like you with gaming. Like I feel like
Oh yeah.
you get on a
I
gaming
go
streak.
through seasons where I like just play
Yeah.
so much and then just drop it.
But I'm trying to not do that. I'm trying to not make it seasons. I'm trying to like make it if you make it a habit. Because I enjoy it so much. It is so good for my mental health that when I'm doing it, I love it. It's just the act of getting me to do it. So like
Yeah.
that is a resolution for me, is like making reading time an actual habit, because not because I feel like, oh, I need to read this many books, but because it genuinely helps my it calms me down. Like I love to read. So that was another one. But yeah, I want to ask you your goals, but before that, I do want to tell the listeners, I feel like this is a little all over the place. Well, no, say your goals, and then I have one more announcement before we actually get started with the
Well,
episode.
actually, so one of my resolutions I was thinking about, actually within the past couple of days since like getting back, I got back like earlier this week from having been in Puerto Rico. So I feel like my New Year's sort of, it feels like it's starting now.
Yes.
But like, trying to like, I like to clean in the winter, and one thing that has come up while I've been doing that is I want to waste less food. I want to try and be better about that. And like, it's not like I waste a ton of food. Like I do try to make things go longer. And, I compost. I've talked about that before. I'm really passionate about that. But, like, ultimately, it's better if you don't even need to compost it at all. Obviously, like, I'm never not going to do that. But, like, I just, there are so many things that, like, I'll buy and then put in the fridge or the freezer and just let die. Especially my freezer.
Yeah.
The freezer is where food goes to die. And so, like, I'm trying to, like, make more effective and efficient use of my freezer. Like just today, I had some stale bread in the fridge, totally fine, not moldy at all, but just like stale and old.
Yeah.
And I made like a bread pudding out of it, but it was so much food that I had to freeze half of it, and I really do want to go and finish that in a couple weeks. I don't want to just let it exist in the freezer for like months and months to come. So like I'm trying to use the ends of things and not just like take the easy way out and just throw it in the compost or even the garbage. Like, okay. It makes me feel better, but seriously, like it's kind of a lot of work to think about different ways to use the ends of ingredients. So like, I think that would be a nice thing to try this year. We'll see.
I love that, and I try to be cognizant of that too. It's hard because we both live alone.
Hard.
It's very hard when you don't have a whole family eating a loaf of bread or whatever. Like, it's hard to make a loaf go all the way. So, no, I try to think of that as well. So, do you have any more? Or is that your main one you can think of right now?
That's one that have come to right now.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Thanks. I think the other thing is, like, be more, like, I don't know, be more involved in cleaning those things that I feel like I only end up doing them once a year, but you're actually supposed to do them every 3 months, like cleaning the vacuum filters and cleaning the blinds and the windows and chores that aren't like routine chores. I'm trying to incorporate more of those into my life so that my place is less dusty.
No, that's actually a very good one too. The only other quick announcement I wanted to make before we move on to the topic here is, so if any of you have been following, we need like a segment for this, Case and Cass's Cartoon Watch. If any of you care, if you're like an OG listener, you know that Cass and I watch cartoons together. Well, we basically... we watch TV shows together, but they just all happen to have been cartoons so far.
Right. They're not like on purpose cartoons.
Yes.
So far it's worked that way.
We wanted to update all of you that our newest endeavor, our newest watch is The Owl House, brought to you by the Disney Plus. And so that has been really fun. We're already on season 2, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah.
We started
this is our first
like,
time announcing.
I want to say mid-December or like the third week of December, like right around the time that we were going to be recording the last episode. But it's been pretty good, honestly. This is the first time that we're watching a show that neither of us have seen before.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So the shows that we've watched before, I think we've both seen all of them, and a lot of the ones, we've got a list running, you guys. We've got a list.
And we also have a running list of ones that we want to watch next. We have like 5 more. So stay tuned for Case and Cass's Cartoon Adventure. We will keep you updated, but we'll let you know how the Owl House.
It's been fun. And
fun.
It's nice because it is another like regular, besides the pod and besides like sending each other just random memos about our lives, like it's another regular way that we get to like communicate and try to be intentional about our long distance friendship.
Right. Exactly.
But it's a lot of fun.
Yes, it is.
Okay, girl. So cooking.
Yes, this episode is all about cooking. We think like not only my brain just went out. It just died. Sometimes the words don't come. Not only is cooking like a fun topic to talk about with anyone, but also as low vision people, it comes with its own different challenges and different things, and it's definitely not impossible, but it's absolutely something we could talk about for a long time. And we have a lot of different things we want to say, but let's start with kind of like our childhood and into adulthood, our journey. Like, Cass, sum up for me in as short or as long as you want. It can, your entire like cooking timeline of your life. Like, when were you first introduced to cooking? Let me say real quick before though, Cass is more of an experienced cook than I am, and she also likes cooking a little more than me. I've gotten into it more recently, and I do like it, but it's not like as much of a hobby for me as it is for her. But so that's a good thing though, because on this episode you can get both perspectives of someone who like enjoys it more. So anyway, and
and like full disclosure, like I understand not everyone is a cook and not everyone likes cooking, but I would love to chat. If you are someone who doesn't like to cook, whether you are low vision or not, I would definitely challenge you to start small and try to build up, just because I think a lot of people, and I think maybe you could speak to this case as someone who didn't really like cooking for a long time. I think a lot of people are either have a lot of fears about cooking, or also maybe just haven't seen a way that they can enjoy cooking and only just see it as like a chore. They're like, well, I gotta eat, and takeout is expensive and not that good for you, so like might as well just like cook something quick. But I would love for people to find at least a few recipes where they really feel like, this was just fun and I got a really good meal.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
But okay, so growing up, my grandma always liked to cook a lot. My grandma was from, both of my parents are from Puerto Rico. So whenever, but like my grandma was always like very involved in the kitchen and kind of passed that to my mom. And my mom is a really good cook. I'm really glad to say that. I feel like growing up with a mom that was a really good cook, you like take that for granted because not everyone is. And so, but like she, from a really early age, got my brother and I like involved in the kitchen. I remember the first thing I made that I felt like I was cooking was, I was really young. I was like probably 5, and I made like Jello in the microwave,
Aww.
you know. And so I was like, ooh, hot thing, and you know, obviously my parents helped me carry the hot water, but like I had to mix something. But my mom would do these summer camps. I think I've talked about them before for different things, but she would do these summer camps that she liked to call home camp, where we did like, it was like a staycation, and we practiced like some life skills stuff, and we tried to like do chores in a fun way. And in that, we would, like, cook a meal from start to finish. Like, we would go to the grocery store, and we'd have to, like, look for the ingredients for the recipe that we were going to cook. And then, like, together, she would kind of help that happen. And so, like, my brother always also really liked to cook. So I think the 3 of us enjoyed being in the kitchen. So, like, I started baking when I was, like, a teenager more. So, like, when I was in high school, I made, like, cookies whenever I had the time, and sometimes I made like some scones, nothing super wild, but you know, I was still more involved in the kitchen until I think it was honestly my senior year of undergrad. I never really had easy access to a kitchen until then, and like I finally started cooking because it was also a way to save money, and it was great. And once I started working after I graduated college, I really just was able to dig more into it as more of a hobby and something that I could explore like new recipes, and from there it's just kind of built on top of itself. And I really enjoy baking and trying out new skills. And I don't know. To me, it feels like art, and it feels like art that you can eat. And when you can combine flavors in a really like special way that you can sit and enjoy a meal as if you were in a restaurant, like, I don't know, that's really special.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love hearing all that. Like, there are some things you said I didn't even really know or hadn't heard you say in a while. So I love that. I had a pretty different experience. So both of my grandmothers were excellent cooks. One of them is still alive. Great cooks, both of my grandmothers. My mom is the best mom in the entire world and literally gave me the world growing up, but she's not a cook. She doesn't really like to cook. She's not bad. And like, she did make sure when I was growing up that I still ate, like, you know, she would still put effort into letting me have healthy meals. It wasn't like she just threw SpaghettiOs at me every day and was like, you know, like, she still made healthy meals, but she was never super into it. I don't think I ever have seen my mother bake, like, ever. She used to, my friends and I laugh now that we're older, because when we were little, she used to say, I'm going to make you homemade cookies. And she would do like the slice and bake. Like, and we laugh now that she called them homemade cookies, because we were like, those are
okay. I've seen some chefs joke about this. Is like, okay, but you made them at home.
Well, so that's what she meant, because she meant not like a Chips Ahoy like bagged cookie. She meant like fresh out of the oven. But so I don't really remember being in the kitchen much as a kid growing up. Like, I was taught basic skills, but I feel like a lot of the way you learn cooking is similar to the way you learn like a language, of like just being around it and doing it, and like, not necessarily like, this is cooking class, like, this is what you do. It's a lot of kids learn just from like watching their parents or like being around them, and I just like wasn't doing that. I did take a cooking class as a kid, and I'm glad you said that, because it kind of reminded me, like, from what your story.
Cute.
I did like a little like summer camp for cooking, and I learned some stuff, but it was like a big group of kids, and being visually impaired too, it's hard to like see when there's a lot of kids. And I feel like I always learned better one-on-one when it was things like that. Going to college was hard because you're in a dorm, and then I was in a house with a lot of roommates. I would mainly use like my meal card to eat food.
Yeah.
And then I went straight to New York, and my New York kitchen was tiny. I mean, you had to literally turn sideways and like scoot to get into the kitchen.
And for someone who doesn't already like really want to cook, like, that's not motivating at all.
No, it wasn't motivating at all to be in there. And I remember my grandmother, my dad's mom, Mama, who is still alive, who's a great cook. My sister and I in college went over to her house for like a cooking weekend, and she shared all of her recipes with us. She wrote I still have this. She wrote all of her recipes out on cards, and we decorated the boxes that we put them in.
That's
but
adorable.
Yeah, it's, I'm so glad to have that now that I like to cook. But I must say, my sister cooked with her all weekend while I like napped and like went on my phone and like
Amazing. I love it.
They always joke that I slept through the cooking school. Like I slept through the whole thing. And I think it's because, like Cass said earlier, I was timid, I was fearful. I'm afraid of fire. I'm afraid of burning things. I'm afraid of like, maybe I won't cook the meat fully and I'll get food poisoning. You know, I felt overwhelmed. I felt majorly overwhelmed. I think during COVID and just being home a lot and now having my own place with a bigger kitchen, finally, like 2 years ago, I guess, was when I was like, okay, I want to cook. And I'm not an incredible cook, but I definitely have come a lot further than I ever have. And I think there's something so special about like a fresh, warm, and not microwave warm, like an actual warm meal that you made. It tastes so much better knowing that you put your effort into making it. And I like baking a lot now too. And I really love gift giving as my love language, and I love sharing my baking with people. Like, and I know you do too. So, and I think I have Cass to thank for some of this. I think like the pandemic and TikTok definitely helped too, but like you becoming friends with you and like seeing your love of cooking and baking like made me want to do it more too. So like I definitely appreciate that, girl.
That's so sweet. Oh my god.
Yeah, I think I mean, I never really thought about it. Like I never really said like Cass was my inspiration, but you know, thinking back, I think you had to have played a big influence in that. Like,
sure.
You know, I think
okay, because you guys, what she's saying is that I'm annoying, and so I know she's not. But like, what I mean is like, when I make something that I'm really excited about, or when there's a recipe that I like am really looking forward to trying out, like I'll tell her about it because like we're best friends and like we tell each other all kinds of like random crap that's like happening in our lives.
Right.
And like for me, I'm just like, girl, I'm gonna make this thing, and then I'll send her a picture of it, and I'm just excited and I want to share it with my friend. But I don't know, hey, maybe that helped inspire
I think it did. I think it did. And also like knowing that you're also a low vision person, and you know, I've always known that people with low vision can cook. It's not that I thought I couldn't. I just think there are a few extra barriers there, and we can kind of get into that.
I really would love to talk about some of that stuff, because there are some things that I feel like, you know, I like to cook. I cook often, but obviously like I'm a pretty decent home cook, I'll say, but like I'm not a professional, and so there are a lot of things that I'm still learning that were intimidating when I first started, and I've made plenty of mistakes and food that's come out very subpar, and I feel like you kind of have to have that as part of the process. And I think that comes with even any art, really. Like you have to, I don't know. I think there's no better teacher than your own past experience. And just like the times that you didn't do it correctly, like they stick with you, and not necessarily always in a negative way, but in a way of like, okay, that went wrong. What can I do next time so that doesn't happen?
That's how I feel about being a plant mom. Yeah. It's like, it was a lot of trial and error at first to keep them alive. And now, like, I feel like with things like that, you have to fail to learn. Like, I know it's so cheesy. You have to fail to learn what you're doing. Like, you just have to try it, and you might mess up. But yeah, like, what about that though? Of like, do you have things that are harder for you, and like how do you get around them? Because I feel like people listening, they might want to know, maybe some of you aren't comfortable cooking for certain reasons, and maybe, I mean, we're not experts, but maybe some of what we say can be of help. I don't know.
So I'm thinking of a few things that either I've learned more about recently or like were intimidating at first, and I've like found ways around it. So one thing I would okay, let's talk about knives, because I know like immediately that's pretty scary for people with low vision. Like it's kind of intimidating to be using a really sharp object, and you could possibly hurt yourself. So one thing that I had done previously, and I sometimes still use it, but I've, like, with experience and with better explanations of how to do things, I've, like, tried to continue to improve my own skills. But I definitely recommend, if you're really uncomfortable with a knife, first, make sure it's really sharp. And for those that aren't really familiar with cooking, that might seem counterintuitive, but a sharp knife is a safe knife, because if you have to put too much pressure to like cut something, like you have more risk of like really like hurting yourself than if it really easily glides through something. So definitely do that. And like I also would highly recommend a chopper. That's gonna be, it's kind of hard to wash. I think that's my gripe with it now that I'm a little bit more comfortable with using knives, but like seriously, you will be so grateful that you can dice something really quickly when you don't know how.
Yes. I absolutely. I think like I still think my knife skills are pretty bad, probably. I don't think I ever really either. I've always, not only can I not see, I just like, I have bad like coordination in general. Like I don't know. I'm just not good at like fine motor skills. Like I'm not great at like cutting like in a straight line. Like I don't know. I'm just not like great. And so I think like my knife skills are terrible, but I just have to go a little slower and be a little more cautious, which is like kind of annoying. I see videos of chefs cutting like fast. And I'm like, I cannot. I have to get really close to it. So I feel like watching me cut would be kind of a funny sight, because I feel like I get my head like right on
Girl, I've had people who are home when I cook and they're like, oh my God. And I'm like, don't touch me.
Yeah, I've never really thought about it until right now, how silly I must look with the knife. But
right up at my face.
I feel like, I really don't cut my finger very often, but I feel like that is because I go slow and I'm cautious, which is kind of annoying. It takes time. I don't love chopping things. Like it's probably one of my least favorite parts of the cooking process, but it's definitely an important part of the process for a lot of things you have to make. So you don't have to use knives with necessarily every meal you're going to cook, but it is going to come in handy to, and I agree with you about the sharp knife, 1,000%.
Definitely have your knife sharp. And I think like there's a few other things I can think about for safe cutting. If you're not super comfortable with cooking, get yourself a pair of or a set of really cheapo knives. Honestly, if they're sharp, they're gonna be fine. You know, if you cook a lot, then maybe invest in something really professional. But otherwise, like I went pretty far with cheap knives for a while. Another thing that has helped me tremendously for not just cutting with a knife, but also using graters and microplanes and the scary death blade machine, the mandolin. Get a cut resistant glove. You can get them on Amazon, and they have saved me a lot. I have shanked my finger on a strawberry before because I wasn't wearing a cut glove, and like really, really, really helpful. And it I don't know, it just gives you peace of mind when you're like a little bit nervous about it. And then I think the last thing that has helped me, especially recently, I finally learned how to correctly dice an onion. And you know why? It was TikTok. So definitely go and watch some videos, just like YouTube or TikTok, how to cut an onion, how to dice an onion, how to slice a pepper, and you can find like more efficient ways of doing it. I can cut an onion so much faster now because I learned how.
Yeah, Yeah, and this is not just for low vision people. My sister had a horrible, like, she almost had to get stitches from a cheese grater incident earlier this year. So, like, it literally happens to everyone, but I think as low vision people, it just adds a little extra barrier, but it's not impossible. We just have to, and hey, we might even be more safe and careful because we know that we need to be. But no, TikTok and YouTube, honestly, such a gift with cooking and recipes and like life hacks and skills. And yeah, I mean, truly, like, it's taught me a lot of things like that too. So absolutely. So I think another, are we good to move on from cutting? Because I think another thing, I think there are two different avenues I'm thinking of, and I'll go down one, and then I think you can do the other one I think that I'm thinking of. But I think another thing with low vision that's hard is like all of the numbers and knobs and things going on. And Cass and I do have some vision. I know that if you're totally blind, it is a different story with that. However, you can always do like Braille labels. It is possible. But I think like every oven, every stove is different. A lot of times, like, even with my stove and oven, the knobs are like against the wall where I have to kind of lean over the stove to like see. Now, I've learned my stove. I know it. I know which way to turn the knob for high or whatever. But, if you get a new place or if you're at a friend's house or whatever, like, yeah, it's hard to see. And even I have a low vision friend who was even having trouble with the air fryer because of just all the buttons. And like, he has less vision than I do, but still, like, learning how to use different things can be harder for us. Not impossible. Have you found ways to work around this, or do you I just kind of memorize it? I don't put labels on it, but I know some people do. Like, what do you do?
I kind of memorize. I'm grateful that when I bought my house, the numbers on my stove are actually pretty big, and they're in the front. And
mine
really
are not.
Glad.
Mine are in the back.
Whenever I visit my parents and I use their stove, they're in the back too. And, like, it scares me because you gotta, like, lean over your cooking food to turn down the heat. It's, like, a little... But, like, the knobs on my stove are placed kind of confusingly, I will say. Like, the way that they're matched to the burners is weird. So, at least I think I can, like, lean down and look at the numbers since they are in front. But something I've done is honestly, like... I'll just take a picture of the knobs in the back whenever I've had to use those. I've heard of some pretty cool hacks with low vision people. So, like, if you've got some range knobs that are, like, flatter and it's harder to tell where the dial is and where, like, the little indicator is, you can use puffy paint. That's an option, and that makes it tactile. So,
yeah.
And then with, like, that also made me think of, like, measuring cups and spoons and utensils and reading other tiny numbers in your kitchen. So, I've talked about this before, but for baking, it's best, and more accurate, so, like, things come out the way they're designed, to measure your baking ingredients by weight and not by volume, which it would be like grams or ounces versus like cups. And actually that's been really helpful, and I ended up buying this scale. So you can buy, if you're low vision, you can buy a scale that has just like a really decent backlit display with big numbers. There are a lot of those out there and they're not super difficult to find. I ended up just getting one that has a voice because I heard Molly Burke talking about it, and I don't know if it's the most accurate scale, but you know what? It speaks to me, and I like it, and I think it's super helpful. It was a little bit more expensive because it talks than like a regular scale, but if you do want to be like very aware of what your scale reads, I would definitely recommend the talking scale. Another thing you mentioned earlier for cooking meat is you can get one pretty cheap on Amazon that has a decent display. Get an instant read thermometer.
Yeah.
and a digital one, because the analog ones are nearly impossible
Yes.
for me to read.
Yes.
But like get a
Yeah.
digital read thermometer, and then like you can literally just Google the internal temperatures for things like girl, I remember one of my big cooking fails when I was an undergrad. I wanted to try and fry chicken, and I did not do a good job.
No.
I didn't know much about frying, and I thought it wasn't going to be too hard, and that's one thing that I'm still learning how to do better, is frying things. But like I did not have a thermometer, and I did not know the chicken was not done.
Oh no.
So we tried to finish it, my roommate and I tried to finish it in the oven. It was kind of a disaster.
Oh no. Yeah, no, I think all of that is very good advice. I think not all measuring spoons are created equal too when it comes to like the numbers, the size of the numbers. And there probably are like low vision ones like specifically made for people with low vision, but I think I usually just when I buy them I try to buy the ones with the bigger numbers, because some of them have really small numbers.
Yeah, actually, so I forgot to talk about that. I mentioned it, but didn't like finish that thought. But like, I like ones that are colored, or at least like have a little like silicone colored strip, and I kind of just associate the color with the size.
Right. That's true too. Yes. Yeah.
So another thing that I think is really scary for a lot of people, not even just low vision people, but also like people that are a little less experienced with cooking anyway, is hot things. There are a lot of hot things in the kitchen. Not just you, girl.
That's a good one, girl.
But like, you know, stoves and ovens and things. So I think for stoves, try to be aware of like your pots and pans and the way they heat up. For example, like cast iron, like the whole thing is going to heat up. So it's helpful if you have like a silicone grip on the end so you don't burn your hand. And for the oven, definitely get some like solid oven mitts. I just have cute ones, but I once burnt my hand on the top of the oven when I was younger, when I was still like living with my parents. And it kind of freaked me out from then on. I wasn't super sure because depth perception is really hard. It's hard to tell where you are in relation to the oven.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll put on oven mitts to put a thing in the oven because I'm a little scared that the hot rack is going to burn me. There are some oven mitts that have fingers in them too. So they're not mitts, they're oven gloves. And that is also really good so that you feel like you've got more control than the mitten. And then there's like silicone oven mitts that are also like they're grippier, they're more heat resistant, so you're definitely not going to get burnt through those. So there are a lot of ways around that. And then also for a stove, you can try an induction burner. So you can buy like a plug-in induction burner, and those are kind of magic. Like, you press boil, and it, like, almost instantly boils. And if you touch an induction, you don't get burned.
Yep, that's true. I've seen those. I think cooking, it can be dangerous for anybody. It's, you know, if you do it responsibly and you know what you're doing, you should be fine. But it's not, like, the most safe thing you could do. Like, there are risks involved. And I definitely have burned my fingers a few times and stuff. I remember the New York State Commission for the Blind gave me, like, a oven mitt that like went all the way up my arm. And it's kind of like and they gave me a few other cooking supplies too that were pretty cool. They gave me like it was kind of like a spatula, but it clamped down so you could grab the food easier. I don't know. They gave me a bunch of cool stuff. But a lot of the stuff you mentioned, I've definitely heard about too. And I haven't tried all of them. Like, I just use regular oven mitts for the most part. But I do think if you're concerned in any way, there are ways to get around that. And I think the induction burner, I have a friend, it's our friend Ashley, who uses that, and I have seen her use it, and like, you quite literally like can't really get burned with it. So if that makes you feel better boiling things, there are ways around it. There are ways around certain fears that we might have of for sure of either burning ourselves or burning the food or whatever, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything, I'm trying to think of anything else that I feel like might be intimidating in the kitchen, but I feel like I don't know, cooking can be as much as you make it too. So like there's all kinds of wild and wacky gadgets, and I think even as someone who likes to cook a lot, it can feel overwhelming. It's like, oh, should I be using this gadget instead? And like, there are some things that I think you can get by pretty well with just your basics. Like get a good whisk, get a decent pot, get a couple decent pans, get some nonstick cookware, some like regular aluminum cookware. You can have like one of each realistically.
Yeah. Since I got into cooking only recently, I really don't have a whole lot of fun gadgets and stuff, and I make it work. I have like a casserole dish, I have a pot, a few pots, I have a pan. I don't even have fancy knives or anything like that. I recently got a nice like mixer for Christmas, a KitchenAid mixer to bake. But even that was like, I really don't have a whole lot of fancy stuff. And even all the low vision things we have kind of recommended on this episode, they're good, but you don't even need all of that really if you know what you're doing. It's helpful for sure, but it's not like you have to go right now and buy like 10 different things to be able to cook. But no, I think we covered most of the bases with like the scariness of cooking.
Sure.
I know this might feel a little off topic, but I don't think it is. If you wanted to talk a little bit about your cookbook club that you're in, because
my cookbook club.
You mentioned it briefly in the last episode, but I think like to wrap up this episode, it would be fun to talk about some of our fun cooking endeavors or things we're looking forward to. And I feel like that like totally fits in with like what you're doing right now.
Yeah, and I would definitely also love for you to talk about, like, for people that maybe want to get into cooking, like, some practical ways from your experience that they can make it more approachable. Okay, so Cookbook Club. This is a new venture. I don't know if you guys heard the New Year's episode. If not, definitely go hear it. We talk more about our personal lives. Not that personal, but you know what I mean. But something that I started doing, I think it was only in November, but it may as well have been forever. But I love my local library, and like if you're in a new city, I definitely recommend checking out that city's local library, because they're gonna have really nice community events. It's gonna be really easy to find other people and connect with. So one thing that I found at my local library is that once a month they have this cookbook club, and every month there is a theme of a couple cookbooks of a certain topic about a cuisine or a type of food, and then we get those books from the library, or in my case from Bookshare, and and then we like make a recipe from that book, at least one, and we come and we talk about it, and generally people bring food, and so it's so much fun. Honestly, it's pretty much me and like 12 old ladies, and I am obsessed with it. I want every day to be Cookbook Club, and so I look forward to it with like great anticipation. I'm already working on January's Cookbook Club. In November the theme was soup, and people brought really delicious soups. December we had a Christmas cookie swap, and we each made 3 dozen cookies to bring and swap, and it was just so much cookie. It was wild. And this month in January, the theme is beans. So I've made a ton of hummus.
Yes. No, I know you can't see me, listeners. I was like beaming, smiling the whole time you were describing your cookbook club. I just think it's so cute. Like I love it, like fits our personality so well that I'm in a book club and you're in a cookbook club.
Right. Well, I think my favorite part about it is that we all like the bulk of the time is eating and talking about our experience cooking.
Oh, that's so fun.
I love boring people with those details, but these people
You do.
want to hear them.
They want to hear it, and you want to hear theirs.
Yes.
And like that is so, it's so fun to have like kind of a niche hobby and to find someone who knows as much about that as you, and to be able to like talk about it, and to be able to like share food with each other. How
So
cool
fun.
is that?
I'm so excited to keep participating. It's something that like I definitely want to prioritize in my life.
Yes,
so if I'm
you
ever
should. I really, it's once a month, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
I'm gonna
It's-
hold you to
Right.
going. I don't think I need to hold you to it because you'll probably want to, but I'm gonna make you go every month because I love hearing about it. I love hearing what the theme is gonna be next, and I remember the day you like told me you had first gone, and like I just loved that existed. I got so excited about it, and I love that you just found that and started going. Like, how cool,
right?
Like,
I mean,
think
hey,
that's so
I got like I usually discard my junk mail, but if it's something local, I try to read it, and
Yeah.
and that was it was a really happy blessing that has like been
Yeah.
part of my life. So I love
That-
Cookbook Club.
that
I already
is
know I
so
can't go in April because I'm going to be out of town, and I'm already sad about it.
Yes. I was like, we are grandmas because I was in a knitting club last year.
Wait, hold on. You're not in it anymore?
No, it kind of fell to the
Aw.
side. So, it's fine. But
Okay.
no, that was so fun, and like I love grandma activities, and Cookbook Club sounds kind of like a grandma
It
activity.
absolutely is. I think
And we love it.
one of the best things so far is that in December, for the cookie swap, it seems like it's tradition. This Cookbook Club has been going on for like 10 years.
I love it.
It's amazing. It seems like it's tradition that if people have old cookbooks that they want to just like either donate to the library or donate to the club, people just bring them. And I got this really like vintage copy of this like Pillsbury Bake Off cookbook from the 1970s. And this woman in the club, I picked it up and I was really excited. I love a vintage book. And she's like, I bought that book when it came out, and I was like, oh
my gosh.
And
That's so
she
cute.
like turned to a recipe, and she's like, I make this one all the time. It's delicious. It was like a coffee cake, and I was like, bet I'm gonna make that.
And I love that you get to share recipes with each other of like, and like you eat it and you're like, this tastes good. What's the recipe? And they have it right there to share with you. Like,
It's cool. It's so much fun.
So cool.
Okay, I wanna ask you. I know like we're nearing the end of our ep, but
yes.
in your experience, how can someone get into cooking, or at least learn to like it more?
So I think something that helped me immensely is, we already kind of mentioned it, honestly, TikTok.
Yeah.
I'm going to be real. I'm going to be real with you right now. If you don't see, I refuse to have TikTok on my phone because I will waste a lot of time. I have in the past, so I have it on my iPad. But even if you don't want to have TikTok, you if you just want to download it just for the recipes or just for the cooking, I recommend it. Also, YouTube
Definitely.
Shorts, if you would rather just be on YouTube, or like Instagram Reels. They all have a different, I'm like, YouTube Shorts,
Yeah.
Instagram Reels, they all have a different name. All of those things. I have found recipes on all three of YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, and you could follow an Instagrammer. Like, this is what I do. I find a person who a lot of their recipes look good to me, and I follow that specific person. And then I have a recipe book where I handwrite the recipes that I
so
like in there, because I will lose, you're going to lose a video. You're going to like lose a reel or whatever, And I think like starting small, like you said, like starting with easier things.
What were some of the first recipes you made?
I at the beginning started, and I still do this because I enjoy this, but I made a lot of different recipes with like ground turkey.
Nice.
Because it's kind of
great.
like a little healthier, but I would do fun things. Like I did like egg roll in a bowl and like cheeseburger stuff. Like, I made like a cheeseburger soup.
That sounds delicious.
Stuff like that with the meat. Yeah, and I still make those sometimes in my like rotation, but that's, it was just really easy to like brown the beef on the, or not beef. What am I saying? Yes.
Yeah, the turkey,
Wow.
the meat, whatever.
Yeah, the turkey, yeah, whatever. To like brown it on the stove, it wasn't too hard. Of course, you have to make sure you cook it all the way. It's not pink, whatever. But but yeah, that was a good way to start. And of course, like, pastas are easy, but like trying to go a little further with a pasta, maybe make the sauce.
Yeah.
Like instead of just boiling like a pre-made pasta, try to like, do something where you feel like you're doing more. And so a lot of the things I make are still fairly easy. I still make that kind of stuff, but I do try to branch out. But I think those are good ways to start where it's like, it's not too overwhelming.
No, and I think that's awesome. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. Girl, I still make recipes. Like, I like to cook a lot, but like sometimes I straight up just like don't have the time to give.
Oh, yeah.
And
I still make freezer meals sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong.
No,
Definitely,
yeah.
I do.
And like making a bigger meal and freezing part of it so then later you can enjoy that meal again. Seriously, like super helpful. And I keep some like ready-made stuff, like freezer food in my freezer for times that I just really don't feel like cooking. And I don't cook every day also. Like,
yeah.
Since I live alone, and I personally, I don't, and I think you and I have about the same appetite. We don't eat that much quantity of food. And so I find that this was a mistake I made often. If you are maybe one or two people who don't eat as much, I have almost all of the recipes that I make. I divide them in half, and I find that it still stretches a decent amount for me personally. If I make a whole recipe, it is so much food, and if I'm not gonna share it, like I had so much food that would go bad when I first started cooking, especially like my senior year in college. So like you learn that way, but like when you have sat down to eat the same pasta for 6 days, you want to lose your mind.
Well, but I think that is one of the plus sides of living alone is a lot of leftovers can be good. Yeah, I mean, if it's that much, no, that's not good. If you have way too much.
Oh, yeah.
But I love a leftover because I
leftovers.
usually cook every other night and have the leftovers the next night.
Yeah, I cook like twice in a week,
so,
I think.
Yeah, 2 or 3 times a week maybe. And I kind of like either do the leftovers the other night or a freezer meal, or sometimes you go out to eat depending, or order in or whatever. And sometimes you can make a pretty good meal or lunch or whatever without even cooking at all. If you kind of make, one of the things I sometimes do is like put like a lot of stuff in a bowl, like cucumber, tomato, feta.
Like a salad.
And you don't have to cook. Yeah, like you don't have to cook that. You just like eat it, I'm not even a big salad person, but there are certain salads that I like, or certain things that you can just put a bunch of crap in a bowl. You don't have to really even like use heat to cook it. We love that. We love like, yeah. So no, but I think it is fun, and I encourage all of you to maybe step out your comfort zone a little this year with the cooking.
And maybe start by trying to master something that like, and build on something that might be really easy. Like start trying to learn to master like making a really fancy or just like a really solid grilled cheese. It can be that simple.
Right. Absolutely. And I think like going into the new year is always a fun time to do that, because I think at the holidays things get really crazy.
Totally.
But in the new year is when you kind of start thinking of what am I going to cook, and having those recipes in rotation is always, and finding a few more is always good, because then you won't be stressed at the beginning of the week or stressed every night about like what am I going to eat for dinner.
Yeah, totally.
Tonight.
I think one of the standbys I have is like periodically I make burritos. Like I make like refried beans on the stove, and honestly like just take beans in a can and like some salsa and some water and kind of boil them a little, and then you mush them together, and then you've got refried beans. Obviously add some spices to it, make it fun, but like roll that up in a tortilla, and you've got a bunch of little frozen, you can throw those in the freezer, and you can have frozen burritos. Like, there you go.
That's great. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be like super overwhelming. You don't have to be like Gordon Ramsay. You can just make like little things.
For sure.
Especially if you're just cooking for yourself. Totally. I have no one to impress. I'm just doing it for me.
Right.
So, yeah, totally. But
I hope you guys get out there, and if you're not much of a cook, maybe give it a shot, and if you are, keep going and keep learning things, and I don't know, share things with us too. If you
Yes,
if you're a
we
low
would
vision
love to
person
hear it.
who like has a cool cooking hack, totally let us know.
Yes, please do. And we are back. We are back from our break, so we will be on our regularly scheduled programming of every other Tuesday. So be on the lookout. Sorry that we were gone if you got confused. We did announce it at the very end of our last episode, but maybe not everybody got to the very end, so that's why we are letting you know that.
Yes.
But yeah, we love you guys.
We love you guys. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.